Hello, students and parents. This month we'll be celebrating Thanksgiving. Students, you can help your parents on Thanksgiving by setting the table. We just need a few items to provide for our students with a visual prompt when setting the table. The first item that we're going to use as a visual prompt is a placemat that has an outline of the different items that we'll use when setting the table. To make this placemat, I just taped together two pieces of paper and used a black marker. I traced a plate and I wrote plate inside. I used a fork and I just traced that and wrote fork. The same thing for spoon. I just traced around a spoon and I traced around a cup. I also wrote my name at the top. Parents, you can help your students write their name by using hand over hand assistance. Then they'll have this placemat that they can use all the time. If they have some other siblings at home, they can make one for them as well. So that's our visual prompt. We have our placemat made. Parents, if you don't really feel like being creative, I put in the Google Classroom a website where you can actually print out a placemat that's already created, and it'll have the outline of all of the utensils and plates and cups. You just print it out in the Google Classroom. It's going to be under occupational therapy in each one of your each teacher's Google Classroom. Okay, so that's going to be the first visual prompt that the students are going to have when setting the table. The next visual prompt that we're going to have is the step-by-step guide when setting the table. It's just pictures of the utensils and a plate and a cup. This is also going to be in the Google Classroom. If you print this out and have this for your student when they're setting the classroom, it'll provide them with that visual prompt of what you want them to do when setting the table. Okay? So those are the two visual prompts that we have. Some of our students might require a visual and a verbal prompt when setting the table. So what you would do is use prompts such as put on, like for example, if you were setting the table, setting the utensil on the placemat, the spoon, you would point to the picture on the step-by-step guide that gives the student the visual prompt. Then you will point to the location on the placemat. That gives another visual prompt. Then saying the term put on, the student will put the spoon onto the placemat. So that way you provided a verbal and a visual prompt to help your student to set the placemat. Some students may not need both of those prompts. Some students might just need the visual prompt. So you can just point to the item, then point to the location on the placemat. Some students may not need that verbal and visual prompt if they've been already setting the tables at home. You can just give them the placemat, give them the guide, and say, and the utensils and the plate and the spoon and the fork, and say, you do. But every child is different. So, depending on your child. And then, as the student progresses and does this enough, you'll notice that the amount of time needed to process what you're asking them to do, it may diminish. The amount of time is going to shorten. If it does start to shorten, and for example, you're using two prompts, a verbal and a visual prompt, I would remove the verbal prompt and just give them the visual prompt. Okay. And then if they're doing that a lot faster than they were before, I wouldn't even give them the actual prompting. I would just give them the actual visual prompt of the step-by-step guide. I would just give them the placemat and the items and say, you do. And give them enough time to process what you're asking them to do, especially when you start to eliminate the prompts because it's a new task for them. They might need a little bit more time because it's different than what they've used to, what they've been doing before. Okay. All right. So now we are going to set the table. We're ready to go. We have our visual prompts. We know how to provide the verbal prompts with our students. And now we're ready. Okay. So in this scenario, I'm gonna provide visual and verbal prompting to setting the table. Okay. Put on, put on, put on, put on. Perfect. Now our table is set and everyone's ready to eat. The students can do this for everyone, not just themselves, and that'll give them more repetition and practice of this life skills task. Again, if the student doesn't require both verbal and visual prompting, I would just provide just the visual prompting. And you would do it the same way as we stated before. So this is just the verbal, this is just using the visual prompt. Okay. Now, if your student mastered that, then they're at the stage where you can just say, you do. So you would give them the items, give them the cup, and say, you do. And the table is set. All right. So guys, I'm going to be placing in the Google Classroom under occupational therapy for everyone to complete a placemat. And if you guys could upload your pictures into the Google Classroom so I can see everyone's placemat. And also, if someone wants to go even further and do a video of the student actually setting the table, that would be fantastic for me to be able to write how the students are progressing in their life skills. All right, I hope you guys enjoy.